Hey,
Good morning.
hey, Grand Rising,
Yeah, Grand Rising.
man. Cheers.
Hey, Michelle.
Hey, good morning. Hey, Peter.
Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
I
What's going on? You look comfy.
am. I've been up early reading, so just chilling here.
Very cool, very cool.
Yeah, yeah. It's nice and bright there in Texas.
I know, right? Yeah, it's nice. It's nice. It's not too sunny right now, but it's good. It's being still on the hundreds, man.
Oh, yeah. Somebody said, "Wow, it's cooled down. It's only 90 or something like that."
Yeah, over here it's like high, mid 90s. It's a big difference. We feel like, oh my God, like a cold front would be like 85, 87. That's like, oh my God, yes, celebrating.
Yeah, my little brother lives in Texas, and he was telling me it's pretty crazy there right now. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
it
you're sweat no matter what. You're just sweating all the time.
Yeah, I can definitely see a huge difference from the 2 years that I've been in this journey. How we talked about it before, right? How you don't really burn or you don't feel as hot as I used to feel like I was burning, like just walking from the gym to my car back in the days when I was a lot more toxic. I'm like, I would be really just angry, like, oh my God, this is so hot. That's why people get a little crazy
Got
because
a lot of fire.
I was burning my skin. But now I can tolerate so much better with a lot more ease. Like I stay out a lot and it feels nice actually. It feels hot. It feels like it's just feeding your soul differently than like burn you externally. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Cultivating that resistance towards it, but also like able to absorb it. Did you guys get a chance to listen to that podcast I put in the chat? If not, no worries.
Not yet,
I'm
but
just curious because there was some really cool stuff that they were talking about. Uh, Richard Rudd and this other guy, Zach Bush. Zach Bush is
mhm.
actually like well known in I think the holistic health community for like other stuff when it comes to just like diet and science and nutrition. Uh, but I didn't realize how tapped into the gene keys he was because he was going into like the science of it and like giving his own theories on what's going to happen in the future because they talk about in a couple of the keys, what the future is going to look like in a lot of different ways. But they were talking about like kind of the near future within the next like 20 to 30 years and what the world's going to look like, what the mutations are going to look like when we get extra sun. So it reminded me when you were talking about sun because they were talking about how um, like global warming is going to happen. They also mentioned that it is nobody's fault and that the earth just does this. It just like kind
Yeah.
of purges in a way. Um,
Mhm.
like I know how you guys know about like when you detox and when you purge, like it doesn't feel good and it's not comfortable, but afterwards it's like kind of so much cleaner and clearer and you feel healthier. Same thing's going to happen to the earth. Same thing's going to
Yeah.
happen to like the environment. Like a lot of suffering and pain is probably going to happen through these mutations, all the different changes with the sun and like the solar flares that are hitting the earth and changes in temperature. It's all going to like kind of hit the earth and cause us to go down that path towards like suffering. Like it's going to suck for a little bit, and
Right.
then it's going to clean and clear. Um, but it was just interesting how he was talking about the mutations and some other cool stuff. Like he mentioned, he was talking about the specifics of the science of how um, the genetic structure will mutate and transform. There's a great analogy that Richard Rudd has in one of the keys. I think it might be Ascension, might be one of the 60s. But he talks about the dragonfly and how it's 55. Okay, 55. He talks about the dragonfly and how it mutates, like how it lives its entire first portion of its life underwater, and then just 1 second it goes above and it can fly. And it talks about like how we're going to mutate and how we don't know what it's like above the surface, but we're in it right now. We're in the change and it's happening right now. And it's going to happen, especially with like all the new kids that are coming and being born into this moment here and now. But he said he had some cool theories about how the genetic structure will evolve and how it will turn from a double helix into a quadrihelix. And there's going to be potentially 4 new amino acids that are going to be added to our genome. So if we think about like all the different possibilities that, or all the different like functions that all these amino acids have on hormones, on our body, on like our mind, how we literally perform every and any function in life, we require like these amino acids. Thinking about adding 4 more like totally changes kind of everything. It changes life on Earth itself. And he said that this change in genetic structure will give birth to like a new sort of creative, like the feminine. It'll allow the feminine to like expand, and the feminine as in like the creativity and the like everything that goes with that female archetype. So some cool stuff, definitely worth listening into, because he had some more just like cool stories that he was telling about himself and his journey. And then Richard Rudd was in there being all poetic and stuff too.
Nice. Yeah.
That's cool. I guess I'm driving to do today, so I'll be listening to that podcast. I was listening to something else yesterday, but I drive like about 40 minutes to San Antonio or go 30 to see a client. So it's just like perfect. So this is going to be my next today.
Nice.
Can't wait.
Yeah, you'll have to let me know what you think, because there's
Yes.
more in there too. And there's another podcast that happened like a week before or something. When I was looking through the rest of the channel, there was some other ones with Richard Rudd as well. But I'm interested in hearing more about the Sackbush guy, and I'm gonna do some digging and see who else is talking about this stuff, because the podcast came out a couple months ago, like 3 months ago, 2.5 months ago. So
Oh, cool.
who knows if there's going to be, a more updated stuff or like new stuff. That's what I'm interested in. That's my my life's work, actually. I've been contemplating a lot of that lately. The gift is freshness. So bringing something new and fresh into my daily life and my daily routines is like how I can keep kind of working towards that life's work. It's just like that gift of finding something new and bringing something new to people. And then the city is beauty. I forget what the shadow is. Hold on. But I gotta watch for the shadow too.
Hey, Kalman,
Yeah.
you mentioned that for us to take a look on the archetype, right, of our life work.
Yeah.
I remember you had a link about the archetype. Is that right on the same link of the Google Doc from the
Yeah, it
beginning?
should be in week 3. If you look up where it says homework, at the end of that time, like it says gene key of your life's work / look up the archetype here. You can click on that link. It's like the 64 doors one.
Where is the link though? I think you said scroll down, but there's only the Spotify.
Oh,
Where you
so in the Telegram, click the pin.
can, yeah.
Go up to the
Here-
second one, click it again. Once you get into the Google Doc,
Yes.
yeah, so then you go down to week 3, and where it says the first link that says here
Okay.
should
I remember seeing that. Okay, no, that's not the one. So here's a Google Doc for the layout for the book club.
Yep.
So that, oh, okay. I got it. Okay, week 3. I see. Look up archetype here. Gotcha. Oh,
yeah. And then you can, when you scroll down on that web page, you can look at all, like, it lists all 64 doors, and all you have to do is click the door that's your life's work, and you can
I
find out the
yeah.
archetype of that.
Mhm.
So yeah,
That's the one thing that I didn't do that I wanted to do, and I'm like, oh, okay, missing that one out.
yeah, no worries. We can
So
do that.
gotcha.
Yeah.
We can do that now together if you'd like.
Also,
Awesome.
just those little doors here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Those are them.
got it.
What's really cool is it talks about how that one key can connect to other keys in terms of the archetypes and how the archetypes work well together. So it's like we're going into understanding like certain things about the channels and the programming partners, and how when maybe I have one channel activated and you have another, when we come together, we activate that channel together. So we have both of those things that allow those archetypes to work together and to express themselves.
Yeah, I know when you were talking about the climate change or the how we detox and we feel like really like crap to feel better. It almost relates to everything on the Gene Keys, as in order to find a gift, you have to live the shadow to activate everything. And in life is always like that, right? They always say like, oh, God gives you, challenges that you can take basically in order to get to the other side kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
go.
interesting. And I feel like all the Gene Keys and everybody's just entangled. Like they say, we are a little piece of, the God within us forms everybody as one. And because the programming goes into the opposite. So at the end of the day, everybody's gonna be somewhat with the lines and the Gene Keys all together. I mean, as one. Like,
Yeah,
yeah,
the interconnectedness, like the fact
yeah.
that we are nature, we aren't separate from nature. We are nature, and once we're seen by nature, that's like when certain things happen, like fully seen within us.
Yeah,
We
it's crazy. I've been reading some stuff that it's just things are making so much sense, and I have this like huge download on Saturday. I literally was like bawling, crying with my girlfriend, and that we went to Austin in this bar, but so much happened in such a quick time. It's been really crazy, to be honest. I
Yeah.
was like, oh my goodness, we discovered so many. There's so many like visualizations, realizations, and just so quick. Quicker than it has been. I think is because the more that we think and contemplate, it's just been pretty
Yeah.
mind blowing.
You're playing with it.
Wow.
You're playing with it. You're
Great.
contemplating
Very
what
cool.
pops
I
2
think
seconds, 2 seconds worth, or a couple minutes. Yeah. I had some moments too on Saturday. Just
You
brief.
did for real?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
I'm
I had a
always happy.
moment.
What's that?
Go on,
Sorry.
go on, Peter.
Oh, just saying. Yeah, Saturday was pretty big. Looking at all these different parts of my profile and piecing them together, and I have to write everything down. I'm kind of making like a little chart of just what, like, I realize that the lines in the profile are different. How do I want to say this? I didn't realize that the line for the keys are, there's CD, and then there's the evolution,
mm-hmm.
and then my question around that I'll ask in a second, but it's just cool to really look at it. And then the contemplation is, for me, is whatever pops up around those. So it feels like I'm not really bouncing around, but I'm finding these emotional aspects coming out as I go, yeah, that's me, you know, on the good or bad, or, you know, anything in between, light, dark, I'll say. And they're all true, really. Um, so my question is if you have something like for, let's say, one of mine, 62.4 impeccability, on the lines, if I'm a 0.4, is that saying that that's where you start from versus if you were a 62.1? You kind of like, well, that's your makeup. That's where you're going to start reading from and looking into things from there and contemplating. Not that you're going to ignore the other ones, but that's the main one where you would start from. Where I have a 52.6 on attraction. So it's like, I'm going to go to 6 on that line, and I'm going to get the most out of it right then and there. And then that'll lead me down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Or I'm sure I'll read those too, you know, as the interest rises. So is that kind of like, it seems like that's logical.
Yeah,
Go
so I
that.
would say to look at your line. He recommends you read all of the lines just because they all are useful and insightful. And we technically are all of the lines because we're all of it. But certain qualities are going to play out more, certain lines are going to be more apparent in each individual. So yeah, I would say to think about when you're contemplating the 62, think about how you're bringing that gift into communities. Like, how are you bringing this gift of precision or city of impeccability into your communities to like build connections, to bring more love into the communities that you're a part of.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And then also just so you to know is so those first 2 keys, so it's what is a 62? Can you show me his?
Yes.
62.6.
I have yours pulled up, Peter.
Yes. So
And
the life's work and the evolution.
62.4, I believe, is my.
Yeah, your life's work. Yeah, so I can
Mm-hmm.
there we go. So the 62 and the 61, the life's work and the evolution, this is based off of human design, where this information that I'm about to say is coming from. Those are 2 keys that you're like probably more conscious of. Like, you might, when you read those, you might be like, oh yeah, like that's definitely me. The radiance and the purpose are known as like unconscious spheres. So those are spheres that like other
Yeah.
people might look at you and be like, oh yeah, you definitely, you know, embody this gift of detachment or celebration, but it might be, you might not be as aware of it as like other people are. Like, yeah, so that's just something to know.
Yeah, and then that's where I just go right to the shadow, whatever the word is, and then like, okay, and then study that, and it brings more levity to the other side, the you know, radiance, for instance. Letting go for me means something different than it would to someone else.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is becoming more and more, like it says in the book, the more you look at it, the more you contemplate each little thing, it's it condenses down. It makes a lot more, not sense, but there's a flow to it, and it's perfectly fine to bounce around wherever you go, because that's the contemplation, not the concentration of it.
Yes. And he talks about how when you start to raise the frequency of one sphere, one band, you automatically raise the frequency of all of them. So it really actually doesn't matter where you start. You can just focus on one key and never look at any other key and like really master that key, and you'll master your whole profile.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, cool.
But it's fun to look at all of it.
Yeah. It says here, you can trust in the process of self-illumination as you continue to mull things over. Sooner or later, you will attain clarity. We will now turn our lens to the sphere, next sphere, which is the sphere of evolution, in opposition to your life's work. Together, these two spheres and their genes encapsulate the primary challenge of your life. Look deeply into the gene key of your evolution. It will very likely represent an uncomfortable place for you. And so it's not about trying to like just get through something to better yourself. It's like staying in there
Oh my God, it's
and
funny.
really,
You're breaking up a little bit, Peter.
what's that?
You're breaking up a
Oh
little.
no.
It's pretty cool though.
Did you hear that?
It got all robotic towards the last like 2 sentences.
Yeah.
That was my power coming through.
I know.
Transforming. Okay. Anyways, I'll just say it's page 63 when right at the sphere of your evolution, and the shadow of that was pretty powerful.
Oh
Yeah.
man. I made it to the lines. I didn't start reading the lines yet, but I made it to, I'm catching up a little bit. I just wanted to actually just something that I read, it kind of got stuck in my mind was when it's about the meditation portion, like on page 38. And it says, through meditation, one gradually comes to the realization that one's true nature dwells in the choice. No, not this one, sorry. So this one right here, this great revelation may come as a gentle unfolding that raises the frequency of awareness over time, or as a sudden implosion that allows you a permanent experience of yourself, your divine self. So this sudden implosion is really what I kind of felt like. Something just kind of burst out of nowhere. And I was speaking and just like crying, bawling, and seeing things. And it was so crazy because even I was looking at my girlfriend and it felt like something kind of clicked, like a picture, like a synapse, that I'm like, wait, I see you different. I don't know, it was really crazy. Like really crazy. So I was reading that yesterday. I'm like, it may come gentle unfolding, but sometimes it comes out of like a sudden implosion, and something just kind of go. And also mutation made a lot of sense to me as a, something you have to endure, and it's a change that most people kind of, at that point that you're about to break through, that's when people like give up and stop and get really scared and have that fear of not, pursuing that path, so it's pretty I've experienced that before, not really knowing what it really meant, but they say, yeah, you cannot have transmutation without mutation too, right? So it's pretty cool. So that those are the things I was like, a lot of like, oh yeah, like that. That was really cool.
That's awesome, Michelle.
Things are coming like boom, like no, it's not even telling me, hey, I'm about to come. It's just like a banger, a bomb just goes like, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is an implosion, and it's interesting because
Wow.
so you have the 48th gene key in your vocation, which is in your Venus sequence. It's also known as your core wound. So the 48 actually, if you read the 48th gene key, especially, it's actually in the city. So if you just wanted to read the city, that's a key of implosion, how we're actually like, that's how we're gonna like create free energy. I don't know exactly, like I would have to look it over again. But he talks about like free energy as being an implosion. It's all about everything exists within you, like it's all kind of stems from this like spontaneous like combustion, but like it's an implosion like within you. I don't know if that makes sense, but read the 48 because that's your core. um
Yeah,
and
okay, thank you.
it
Yeah.
talks about exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, but I did spend a little bit of time reading my 44, my life's work and my evolution. But when I fell down on Saturday, it was actually something that we discovered and realized about my girlfriend's actually path.
Hmm.
It was about her and something that's been hitting in her path that she hasn't discovered, but she knows what she's doing now is not what really fulfills her 100%. So we were talking about things, and then that came out, and I kind of saw her in a different way. And then when she was speaking, I visualized, I saw what she's here to do. I kind of visualize her doing like in the middle of nowhere in nature. And it's just because she has this, I guess she was really good. She was a really good writer growing up, but never really pursued that, right? Because I guess that was just like the challenge was probably anxiety, and then not being able to pursue that created the depression, which is kind of the polarity of, anxiety and depression. But anyways, so something that she said, and she said, oh, my teacher used to tell me I'm a really good writer and very descriptive of things. And then we were at the bar, right, hanging out, having a snack and chatting, having a great time. And then she's like, wow, if I had to tell you in words how we got from the streets to the bar. So she started saying, and it was very poetic actually, when she said, oh, and we walked here in the wind and stuff. And her words touched me so deep that I started to really feel that, and it kind of exploded. I'm like, dude, you can write poems. Like it's natural, like the writing. So that was kind of the idea, how I felt that towards, what we're talking about.
Wow.
Really crazy, man. It was so crazy because, like you guys, how you read when you read Richard Rudd, it's just like, whoa, this is deep. I can really feel it. He's, I mean, to be a poet, I mean, I guess to be a writer, you have to really be so vulnerable and pour your heart out that whoever is reading is going to be like, oh my goodness. Like when a singer is singing and you get tears and goosebumps because the way they sing is just like, oh my God, what's happening? So it was kind of like a huge sign and revelation of her path, I guess. I mean, we're all doing it together, so kind of thing. So it was pretty crazy. Never felt like that before. I was like, I mean, oh man, it's pretty cool. So yeah,
That's
this
easy.
is pretty powerful. Wow, everything's powerful, right? Yeah,
Michelle, do you know her gene keys? Did you
I do actually.
what's her life's
I
work?
do. I'm like, I need to see your gene keys. And it's funny because I saw a client yesterday that I haven't seen in about 4 weeks, and I randomly asked her, hey, have you heard about the human design gene keys? And surprise, surprise, we have like, we really vibe with the same frequency. And she's like, she actually has the Audible Golden Path book, and I didn't even know. And then of course I got her hologenetic profile because you're like, hey, and how on point it was, and it was just like, again, mind blowing. And she was reading, at least, when it comes your those four things, right? That comes your radiance, your purpose, and your what makes you healthy, fulfills you. And she was reading, and she was like, wow. And she's really growing and changing too. So it was really, really a really good session. Anyways, my girlfriend's is she is an Aries. She's a July 31st. Her gene keys life's work is 21.3. Her evolution is a 48.3,
Mm.
and 21.3. That's her life's work.
What's her vocation?
Vocation is 64.4.
Mm.
Cool.
Okay, yeah. The 64, that's imagination.
Yeah, that's her vocation. That's mine.
Illumination, imagination, and confusion. Line 4.
Mm.
Yeah, connection. But there's a lot of good stuff. I guess her radiance is 38.5 and her purpose at 39.5. She has
Mm.
a lot of fives actually.
That's very
Which,
leadership energy. But that's interesting because then when she's tapping into this gift of imagination, that's when she can make like her best contribution to like her work. Like
okay.
using her imagination to write poems or to like, the way you just described how she described your walk across the street. It's like, you're
Oh
using
my,
your
no.
imagination to
Oh, I was like, oh my God. I was just like, I was like, what, the power of it. I was like, wait, this is something unusual, something that she never pursued. And she is, again, because I guess the anxiety was really a huge challenge for that,
Mm.
that she struggled with. And yeah, so it's
Well,
pretty cool.
so
Yeah.
the shadow of confusion. So maybe just being confused about like the path.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. It's fun.
So,
So, yeah, go
go
on.
ahead. Go ahead, Michelle.
No, I was just going back to the archetype, but you guys go ahead.
Yeah, I was just wondering, Katie, do you want to kind of go through each one of the lines and give, you were talking about it the other day, and I felt like you had a really good handle on each one of them. I'm still learning kind of the full embodiment of each one. I'm a 3/6, or sorry, yeah, 3/6 in my profile. So, I mean, I'll talk about it first, but I want you to kind of give a better synopsis of all 6 of them. Um,
That's cool.
We've talked about the 3 in the past. I think, Michelle, you have a lot of 3s in your profile too.
Yeah, I have a few threes, and then I have not lots of it, but I have definitely threes and fives are mine. 3 threes and 5 fives. I
Mhm.
just got the lines too earlier, but I didn't go too deep into it. But yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
so
down.
the third line is kind of like the guy who, or the person who experiments, who learns and lives everything through experience. And like now that I've understood kind of the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, even towards the 5 and 6, it's like I understand where my part is in society compared to all of those things. Like I'm not necessarily here to create all of the things. That's like the one. The one is here to like be that spark, be that initiator to make something new and bring something new to the world. The 2 is sort of building on top of that and refining it in a lot of ways.
It's the dancer archetype.
The dancer, yeah.
And
Yeah.
then the 3 is to like take those things and to actually live them and experience them. And that's not always a pretty path. Like
Well, that I have 5 on the
we learn it, and we learn from our mistakes. And I definitely, as I've like kind of transformed my life and gone further into health and wellness, it's been a lot of trial and error to figure out what feels good. And I didn't even know about how to feel for like the longest time, so it was like even just tapping into that first. But I can say now that like I'm comfortable like exploring different things and learning about them, and I've even used my own 3 within myself like as a part of the process. So like learning about, because I can tap into the 1 and the 2. It's not what I love to do, but I can definitely see how I really do love embodying the 3. That's like kind of where I find my brain develops the most new neural pathways is by experimenting and trying things on my own, but not necessarily creating them. Like I'm experimenting with other people's creations, and then like in a way refining them.
Adapting them.
Yeah. And then the 4 is like, from what I understand, it's more bringing it out into communities, and then from communities, 5 is society. Like, how can we bring this into the world? And then 6 is like the embodiment of all of that. But yeah, Katie, if you have anything to kind of add, that's like
crazy.
what I got from it. And 6 is also, from what I've been reading the Pearl sequence, and from what I've read about the 6 through that lens, through the blue, the vocation, and the pearl, and the culture, it's really like, and I've mentioned this I think before, but it's really like the 6 isn't necessarily has an established foundation in our society now. So it's like really about what the future is going to look like, is when 6s are going to be able to tap into their lines the most, is when we make space for that. And we'll make space for that through purging, through all of these different things where we evolve and we transcend into a different type of society. But yeah, Katie, do you have anything to add to that? Did I nail it?
Well, yeah, that's pretty much it. The 1 is like the beginner. When you're looking at the key with a line 1, it's kind of like the 1 is really exploring that key and like it's in its very beginning stages. And then the line 2 takes what the line 1 created and like becomes kind of an expert at it. It like really dances with it. It goes deep into that and becomes like, a lot of people will notice line 2s as really embodying whatever, like the gift and like its highest expression. And then the 3rd line takes what the line 2 has become like a master in, and sort of starts to play with that energy and work with it in a different way, adapt it, kind of expand on it, change it. It's all about change. The line 3 is the changer. And then the line 4 takes what the line 3 kind of changed and adapted and brings it to its communities, and it shares it with its communities, and that's known as the heart line. So it's all about creating these heart connections with your community. And then the 5th line looks at the 4th line, whatever's being shared in the community, and decides whether it like is truly valuable or not. And then if it is, it shares it on like a grander scale. And then the 6 lines, the 6th line has a view of all the other lines. The 6th line can see the 1, the 2, the 3, the 4, the 5. So the 6th line has like this bird's eye view of all of the other lines. So it's able to really embody like the entire essence of the key, like, or yeah, it's wise because it sees everything.
Go ahead, Peter.
Just on top what you just said, Katie, that last part, is that what surrender means? Like you're surrendering to because it says here in line, it says education and surrender. For what you just said, is that kind of like you just take it all and go, okay, here's where I'm at. This is all the things that are accumulating around. This is what it's feeling like. This is the surrender to, like, yes, just keep going. Versus shadow would be like, well, I don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind of, the surrender, different meaning than what we've always been told is meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, and like when you can see a full picture, it's almost like you almost have to surrender because you're seeing it all. So it's like there's no denying of what it is. You see it. It's all laid out. So yeah, like thank you for adding that in there.
No, you're welcome. Yeah, no, that's great.
Tying it back into the whole like nature and we are nature, the 6th line is like surrendering to the fact that we are part of nature and we're not divided in any way. I mean, there are things that have divided us from nature and separate us from nature. You know, just like technology in a way has driven us just society and their shadows have driven us away from nature. But like it's sort of I'm like thinking about how, and this might have been brought up in the podcast, but like how a single-celled organism kind of becomes a multicellular organism as they realize that they don't need to fight anything to evolve. They just need to realize their part in it and how they connect to others and how just how that kind of works and feels as a whole. So like being seen and not just seeing nature, but also being seen within nature. Yeah. I also wanted to add something because I just remembered you said something earlier, Peter, about how Michelle was playing with the keys. And I read something recently about how, you can, if you do something to try and create a new neural pathway and you try and repeat it 100, 200, 300 times, then it'll like sink in and finally make its groove in your brain. But if you have to do it like that many times, you really have to do it like 400, 500 times. But if you do it in play with the concept of play around it, it takes like 20 times tops. And it's like your brain and your body can absorb that, whatever you're learning, at a much quicker rate because of that sort of emotional frequency that you're bringing to it, or that just the feel and the want to play, which is cool.
Yeah.
I just remembered that. I was like, that's so it's interesting that we're talking about how like, oh, I'm getting all these downloads and I'm absorbing things so quickly. It's because we're, like approaching things with the sense of play and the curiosity and the like just everything we're using in terms of our mindset to go explore these keys in this language. Yeah.
We're used to that in the physical, right? But the from your heart and then inside I guess I won't say it's harder, but we have a lot more blockages in there when we're like gonna go do some kind of physical thing and we really get into, say, I don't know, like when I first found those WEC pulsars, we were playing with them. It was like you learn pretty quick because you had that tactile and it was different, and there was some locomotion that you hadn't felt before with them. And
I've been thinking about getting those. Do you like them?
I did, yeah. I mean, overall, I do like them, but I'm kind of over those. I'm interested in other things locomotion wise now, and the pathways to all my compensatory injuries along the way that are all appearing now, and like being in those going, well, this is really cool. It kind of sucks, but at the same time, I see the pathway of how they all began all the way back. So, but the tactile of that, that makes a lot of sense. I think you might have posted something about that, but it's just totally true. When you're in it, like for me, it was like going off bike jumps and learning how to do a certain trick or get more distance or height or something like that. You just keep doing it because you're just saying you want that sensation. The sensation hits. Yeah, so I'll follow you. That's it's totally true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, when I was working with Paul Chek, we were doing the golf biomechanics program. It was the motor engram of, like, say, activating your transverse abdominis and doing this. It was the general idea was it takes like 10,000 reps, right? But that's like something that you really are trying to like concentrate on, like, right? And then so like golfers always do too many buckets of balls, it's like they should stop at like one or even less than one bucket of balls instead of like, no, that was fun, I want to do more. Like, well, yeah, you're kind of like ruining all that cool stuff you found in your sweet spot, the nuances or the lines. You found different lines in the angles of the club. This is before Gene Keys for me anyways, but that's what I'm saying. Like you 10,000 is a lot when you're concentrating, but when you're contemplating and playing, they come by like buses, and then
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like Michelle said, it kind of hits you like a little bit of a wave, and you feel it right then and there, and then you're connecting with somebody, right, Michelle? It's like boom, and it's changed right then and there. So then you want that same sensation. So then your mindset's on, diving in more to the book, and you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in the Gene Key 15, one of the lines actually says, and this Gene Key is all about, it's called like hitting the Schumann resonance. So it's all
Okay.
about understanding yourself as one with nature, which is literally what we're all talking about, and learning to slow down. And it has the gift of magnetism, which I don't know if you remember last time I said that's a programming partner of the 10, which is what Richard Rudd mentions the 10 in the beginning of the book, is that the gift of naturalness. When you're like really embodied in your authentic self, you become magnetic. You just start attracting things. But yeah, and one of the lines is your attitude affects life's events, which is the first great law of magic. So it's kind of interesting how you're talking about like playfulness as like the attitude you approach things with is like, it's going to determine how things unfold.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Mhm.
This one quote, I pulled it out because I kind of found it again, but it was this guy Zig Ziglar, who you might have heard of before. I wrote, I copied this down, signed it myself in 05. So this was what was I getting ready to do? I was getting ready to embark on something pretty big, but I was really into it, and it just stuck with me. My input determines my outlook. My outlook determines my output, and my output determines my future.
Can you read that one more time?
Yeah, my input determines my outlook. My outlook determines my output, and
Mm,
my output determines my future.
mm,
Yeah.
Interesting.
In Zig, he's famous in some circles for saying this quote: "The chief cause of failure and unhappiness is trading what you want most for what you want right now."
mm. I like,
So that's kind of a concentration, like, still, to me, now that I'm looking back at it. But the playfulness part about looking at like the reality of like what I'm made up of, um, just hitting so many things for me
Mm.
right now.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That quote is awesome. Both of those quotes are awesome.
Yeah.
I can screenshot it for you later.
Yeah,
yeah, that'd be great.
yeah.
2005. I was like, yeah, I'm going. Keep doing it. Let's go. Kind of just
That's amazing. I love when I find like just like old writings, or I'm like, wow, I was so tapped in then.
yeah, you were. Yeah,
Like
you still
2005, still tapped in.
Hey.
Still
Did
killing.
you guys ever do the thing where you put stuff on your mirror so it was right there in the morning, and you read it, what you wrote, what you wanted, or your goals, and you do it every morning? Do you guys ever do anything like that?
Yes.
That's around that era for me. Like,
And
okay, this is hard. I don't want to look at it and read it, what I wrote down, what I really want. Do you guys ever do that with the?
Yeah.
Uh,
Not me personally, but I
I
should
have,
start.
that's cool.
but I know it's a great way to visualize and get to your goal. Even as, training back in the days, we used to say, just, cut a picture of who you want to look like, or whatever you want to be, and just
Mm.
place it over there and look at every morning, so you can start just, basically as a way to manifest your
Yeah.
future outcome. So
Hmm.
good.
Yeah, keeping your eye on the prize.
Yeah, basically.
Don't lose
True.
sight of the bigger vision, you know?
This is so much more like concentrated into I guess love, really, just love for yourself,
Mm, yeah.
as a every moment type thing, good and bad, light and dark.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's truly what the gene key is. I've like said this so many times. It's the teaching, like the core teaching is just like go to your heart, go to your heart, open your heart, open your heart, stay in your heart, stay in your heart. It's like seriously, you don't have to know any of these keys. You don't have to, if you just like work on opening your heart and maintaining an open heart, these will happen naturally because it's there within you. It is you.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. These are like canisters or like markers to go, oh, that thing that's been coming up for me has some words to it that I can connect to. I'm like, oh my God,
Mm,
that's what I'm thinking in the subconscious.
yeah. It's
Yeah,
just a
that's what really,
remembering.
what's
I
that?
like.
It's
Yeah,
just
go
a remembering, which Peter, that's your
Mhm.
pearl, the 33. It's the archetype of the medicine woman. It's all about we forget to remember. Like that's kind of we come here to forget so that we can remember like who
Mhm.
we really are, what we truly are.
Right. Yes.
Kind of
Yeah.
like that cosmic joke. Like, okay, God, thanks.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, I really like how he describes that the gene key being like multi-dimensional little mini portals into your being. And that I was like, oh, I'm starting to understand. I know it's that we have everything within us, but it just sounds more complex than it really is when you say it that way. Like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, we have everything within us, or but how do you actually act on what we have, and how do you tap into to that power, I guess. So, and then naturally before the gene keys, when I came across the detoxification, the breathing, it really started with an old training and me having injuries and going to more like mobility training, which requires more awareness of joint position, posture. And then I started training the awareness and then went into barefoot shoes. And, then I switched to barefoot shoes and then the awareness, expanded because of your feet and the grounding. And then kind of like before quarantine happens, it led me into changing my whole diet and trying this plant-based life. So it led into, to the breathing, into the raw foods. And I'm like, wow, naturally we just basically, sweeping the dust of to get to your code without even knowing, just like your body naturally gravitating to the right thing. But it took me going down to, like we said, to the party life, to the craziness, to finally feel like, okay, I've been living my shadow a lot. So let me just, once you get to the end of it, like he says, you have to accept the shadow, you have to accept and then embrace, right? There's the three things I forgot, but the acknowledging that that is in you and accepting that. And then once you embrace that, then you can really get out of that. You can find the gift of the shadow. It makes sense how he says the shadows are just wired in, into your brain, into that fear and survival. But
Mm.
instead of surviving, you can thrive. And some people just never get to that thriving. They are always so much in fear and survival, especially with, with the government and the virus and the masks and all that shit. So I mean, it's a lot of things that I'm reading, like, oh, I thought of it, but not in that way. Like, okay. But yeah, it makes total sense. Yeah. It's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, it makes you think about how many people are tapped into the shadow frequency because they're stuck in sympathetic nervous system states,
Hmm.
and how it's all, I mean, it all brings it back to the breath. As we
Yep.
know, people are unhealthy because they're stuck in sympathetic nervous system states. They can't breathe. They have dysfunctional breathing patterns. But once we, start to evolve, uh, and once we as individuals, help our community around us and help everyone breathe better, help everyone move better, do all these holistic things to help our communities, it'll start to spread, and eventually the whole world is going to have a Bolt score of 60, you know? Yeah. uh,
That'd be awesome.
yeah, but truly, that's when, it'll happen, like globally, we'll feel these shifts, and we'll start to see and feel the acidic frequencies more, not just the gifts, but we'll start to like just flash into those as a collective.
Mm,
I'm excited for it.
yeah. It's also very much like these systems, human design especially, is all about like getting out of the mind, going into the body. And I almost think of the mind as a fire eye and the body as a water eye. And so many of us are operating out of the fire eye, out of the mind. That's the authority. But these systems are actually teaching you that you have to come into your body because the wisdom, which the 48 gene key teaches, lives in the body. That's like, it's known as the well. Everything you need to know is already within you. And yeah, sometimes like Michelle, you were mentioning the partying. It's like for me, I had to be so disconnected from my body through doing drugs and just being so unhealthy that I was like so numbed out that like that's what's like sort of when I started to shift into a healthier lifestyle and really getting into my body, that's when like a lot of the answers I was looking for with my mind like actually started to come through.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really cool how human design talks about the different energy centers in the body, uh, like how there's 9 chakras, not 10, or not 7, and how we're shifting our authority from the mind to the solar plexus and to the gut, how everything's going to be from the gut, and it's gut microbiome and cultivating gut microbiome and healthy stomach, healthy digestion, healthy lymph, that's going to allow us to have that authority and make decisions and move and yeah, like walk the path more, that's aligned more with our intuition, and our purpose is through that third eye, but also through that gut.
Yeah.
And that gut and that brain connection is so important.
Trusting our gut.
Trust in the gut.
Vibration.
Right.
I think
It's
it's
always
gonna go kind of evolve the same way like that breath is gonna evolve, like the gut microbiome is gonna become much more diverse and much stronger. Uh, we've been having to battle so many poisons and toxins in our environment for a while now that it's going to change, and it's going to purge, and it's going to allow us to have a healthier foundation and a stronger gut. And a stronger gut's just going to lead to more tapped in human beings who can lead from their gut, and who, like, once you lead from your gut, there's no second guessing yourself. There's no like second mind ego that just hides behind and says all those negative things that are so loud. Like when we have thoughts in our brain, the positive thoughts are actually quiet. Not that they're quiet, but they're just soft. They don't need to be loud because they're tranquil. Like light isn't volume. Light is light, like actually light, like it feels light.
Mhm.
But the shadow emotions and the shadow frequencies and thoughts are so loud. They take up so much room, like all the time. And it's through that mutation, through that feeling of the intuition in the gut, that will like almost silence the shadow in and of itself. Like the shadow will just become like more quiet. There'll be too much light for it to even exist. Not to say that it won't have its flashes, you know,
It'll just be few and far in between
Yeah.
the more that you
Yeah.
go into the light.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so true. And it goes back to, you know, they want us to be very distracted and lose our creativity and imagination. And I was talking to my girlfriend about that too. I'm like, see, look at here, where we are at the bar. There's people, there's food, there's drinking, there's music, there's people playing ping pong. It's just, you can never even feel things because there's so much stimuli. And of course, the cell phones and technology, there's goods and bads. But, and even back in the days, because my girlfriend's mom is a left hand and she's a left hand as well, right? And she was even talking back then how, if you're left handed, having more access to your right hemisphere, that in school they did not let her write with the left hand. They would just, tie your hands. And yeah, I even read that on the Back to the Brain of Eden, that book, which is pretty crazy. But people that are left-handed, they would not allow you to be a left-handed in school. They'll like tie your hand at the door. They'll make everything happen so you don't, pursue that gift of, they say
Right.
left people are more creative and they have more access to the right brain. But yeah, it goes back to in school now, the kids, they're trying to make them as robots as possible, and not, we're talking about like when we were kids, we used to manifest things without knowing. You just be there playing around and thinking about, it's not that you look at things and say, what if, or this, you
Hmm. Is Peter frozen too? Did everybody freeze?
Is it ours?
I don't think so. Huh. Weird.
It's
Alright,
like a
well,
glitch in the matrix.
time's.
there.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, there you go. You guys are back. Oh my God, I was like, you were like this.
Oh, it
Yeah,
said it might have been my internet connection. Sorry, go ahead. You were talking about how
no,
kids
it's okay.
manifest, and how they don't think about it. They just are like,
Yeah, when we were kids, right? We used to see things and they always say like, when you manifest something, you have to envision yourself being that, right? Not just like, oh, what if and thinking. It's just like you are. And as kids, we have tremendous imagination and creativity. So you just start to see yourself doing something, that something will happen. And you didn't know that you manifested, but you did. And and then we grow, we get so distracted with everything else around us and the stimuli that you stop being creative and imagining yourself, that you're just overthinking instead of seeing yourself, and imagining and being creative. So, and that, like you said, with the gut feeling, right? Like your first your first feeling of your gut is your intuition. And we feel that, and right away the other voice comes and makes you confused. But I'm like, no, why would I think and feel that way at first? Because that's what really is. Then I just stay away from the other thoughts, because your gut feeling is your gut feeling. It's just your true essence, how things should be.
Mm.
So people are really, they doubt their gut feeling a lot. Like when that comes, they're like, oh, but what? The buts and ifs come, and then they lose that because it's much harder. Yeah.
yeah. I'm glad you brought up like stimulation, like how that can really keep the mind like occupied. It really doesn't allow you to feel when you're overstimulated. And it's this like, again, it's like kind of tapping into that sympathetic nervous system state. You're like so used to being in the mind because you have to, or you've had to, and it like forces you to continue this like negative loop of just being constantly stimulated. And there's definitely like tons of people I know who are overstimulated. You can tell once you've kind of disassociated from the matrix, pulled out of the matrix in any way, you can like, once you step back into it, you're like, oh, okay, everybody else is sucked in, everybody else is on their phones, in their phones, and it's just interesting to kind of watch and comprehend. But also, like, you know, as human beings, we're in the matrix and out of the matrix at the same time. So we're like using the matrix to create a new matrix. It's where like the whole New Earth matrix concept comes from, is like we're not shying away from these things that, you know, cause us to be stimulated. We got to use them. We got to turn them into the weapon instead of like letting them be used against us. I was talking to Katie about this the other day. Like, anything in your life that you see as negative, and if it's stimulation, if it's something hard, if it's something that you feel drained by, find out a way to make it into a weapon. And like, I gave her an example of what I've been doing recently. Like when I teach breath work, especially if I have multiple sessions a day, my throat starts to get a little dry. I'm off gassing CO2 because I'm talking all the time. So I'm figuring out all these little ways, like even in between when my client is doing a breath hold, I'm doing a breath hold, and then I'm recovering right after. So I'm able to like continuously kind of work on my own breath during the time that I'm actually teaching. So I'm using that time as a weapon for myself, as a sword, to either defend myself or protect myself, or to, you know, vanquish my enemies. Whatever it is, be a light warrior in a way. And yeah, so, you know, be in the matrix. Notice when you're in the matrix and use it for yourself and in your mind and your soul, your spirit and your energy, all of it. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm pulled into the matrix, oh, I can't do anything because I'm too stimulated, or whatever it is, you know.
Yeah, that's money. That's
Yeah.
money. Nice. I bought a GPS thing for my bicycle, just for mileage and elevation. I don't have any of the fancy stuff hooked up to it, like cadence or power or anything. Just, but why I'm telling you this is because I got that about 2 years ago now, and ever since then, I never, unless I might need it potentially on a long ride, I never bring my phone. And from day one I started that, I noticed a way different vibe riding, and I just kept rolling with like, oh shit, this is different. I don't stop to take pictures obviously or whatnot, but just not having it like on my, in those back pockets, you know, right in my kidney or one of my kidneys, or now they got pockets on all sorts of areas of the gear now, but I don't have to worry about that. And that's came to my mind when you were talking about that. Like, that's been a big deal for me, is just a simple GPS unit, and I'm off. Leave the phone at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Find a way to use it. Yeah, like, hell yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many different ways we can be creative about that concept, and how like we use technology, but we're also, you know, not getting trapped by it in any way. We're not operating out of the mind. We're operating still with our gut, and or at least trying to tap more into those sensations. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Using things for a higher purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Yeah, I get so much more out of the bike riding, and it's more visceral. It's kind of what's taken me, like almost like what we're talking about, into here with the Gene Keys, and just having avenues to rejuvenate yourself, like the breath holds, you know, in a stressful moment, say road rage, potentially in the car, you're like, okay, well, do a breath hold. I'm not going to try and figure it out or rationalize it or listen to my shadow or anything. Just like do a breath hold and be done with it. It's done. Get back to where I was. I was like in some deep thing. You know how it is when you're driving, right? You're in some kind of like mode, and then something happens, and then you want to get back there. I want to get back to that. So it's just do breath hold and make that the most important thing for 40 seconds or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
All right. Well,
Um,
yeah, go
can I
ahead.
ask a question just real quick? And
Of course.
yeah. So what time is it? I gotta go too, but
11:11.
okay, so yeah, it is, isn't it? Bam. Okay, so I've known you a certain amount of time, and I've seen you. I entered the common realm at a certain time, we'll say, right? So I only know you as one, but then when I hear history about where you've come from, what you've overcome, and where you're at now, what was it like for you when you first found the Gene Keys? And I do remember you first talking about them. I was like, I don't know what this is. Like he's looking into like science, like I imagine little test tubes of like these genes that he's looking at. I don't know. I didn't know what it was. But so like from that point to where you're at now, what was it like? Take me back when you were doing what Michelle and I are doing. We're like looking at these numbers and connecting, going, oh, okay. And then, like just in a general, we can talk more about it later too, but
Yeah, no.
I'm curious about that. And Katie too, just kind of like, oh, like the format of how it started gelling for you and
So
how confusing it was at
yeah,
times.
so the way I started wasn't actually like this. So I didn't go through the golden path the way like he talks about it. I didn't know about the lines really until honestly this week. Um, the way I started off was just, I think Katie recommended I look at one or two of the keys as a good like starter, and I've started just reading, and and then I got my profile in human design and Gene Keys, and I was trying to just like make sense of like all these numbers and what they actually mean and what this language was. At that time, I was like, I think 2 months into my fruit cleanse, where I was using Dr. Morse herbs, and I was
Mm-hmm.
hitting breath holds of like 3 minutes consistently. Like I was, my brain was operating like at an insane capacity just because like I was just so clean and clear. I didn't have any brain fog. I was just like, it was so open here. My crown chakra was like blasted open. So I was reading and taking in and contemplating all of these things very quickly. I think for me, and this, one of the keys specifically has been speaking to me for like almost 2 months now. And it's in my culture, and it's the Gene Key 4, and it's the shadow of intolerance, the gift of understanding, and the city of forgiveness. And I thought about like just the words for a long time before I even read it. And then I went into like the actual keys, and I listened to Richard Rudd talk about it, and he talks about the why and like this like underlying like pressure to always try and figure out certain things about life and to like really search and like dive deep into things. So like at the beginning of when I started doing the New Earth Telegram, I was talking about how I viewed the world and how I've seen things and what some just from the resources that I've read, the books that I've read, the information that I've downloaded from or just gotten from different podcasts, all these things. I was putting all these pieces together from how I think about history and how it develops. And then I got Gene Keys. And when I started reading the 55, I was like, whoa, holy crap, this is like so much information that I've been looking for that like helps me piece together certain other parts of this puzzle of like why, like figuring out why it all exists, why has history happened in this way, and what has like changed along the way to put us where we are now. Because I had this kind of intention and this thought behind like if we're going to move forward in society, we got to figure out where we're coming from and the truth about where we're coming from, because there's so much honestly wrong information about our history, or it's not necessarily wrong, but it's very narrowed. It's a narrowed view. History is only written by the winners. We don't know certain things about what life was like before certain cataclysmic events. So we have very like small pieces of information, and people are even finding more about it now. So it gets into, different races, different types of individuals in terms of aliens, like where we came from in the different, like for lack of a better term, aliens, and then like how we used to talk with those aliens, communicate with those aliens, how we basically are the aliens. There's no difference between us and the aliens. We just are aliens at different frequencies, different dimensions. Like when people talk about, oh, there was an alien. No, we are in the same way that we are nature. We are those aliens too. Everything's interconnected. So it's my whole asking why. I really dug into that and reading through the Gene Keys, finding out about just how society works, how AI works before, computer AI existed, how we've transcended and how we've moved through the different ages, where we're going. So like, that was back in February. That was like, I was getting crazy downloads, just putting pieces together, like, whoa. And since then, I've learned more about my authority, learned more about my cross in human design, like my 3-6 cross, those lines, learning what that means, learning about human design and how I'm a reflector and embodying whatever that means in all of its colorful ways. Like I understanding society in that lens too, like the generators, manifesting generators, projectors and reflectors, how society can create its shape through that. And then like just it's been such a cool journey because there's so much just fun stuff for me to look at and understand. And it's like in the same way that Oxygen Advantage and breath work is a language, like even Goda is a language. All of these things kinesthetically to do with the body are different languages for me to like learn and figure out that three line. Like let me experiment with all these different languages. This was like another one, and I was like, this is something cool that I've never heard about, that I've never that hasn't really piqued my interest until that moment. And it was it's a lot of fun. It's just very cool. And now I'm like, yeah, so like at the time there was a lot going on. I think I was in the midst of like doing a lot of personal transformation, so this all just like helped the evolution of that. I would spend time just reading random keys, and then I got into the Pearl sequence as well. And so there's this sort of culmination of a lot of my work as a holistic health coach and where I've gone and all the things that I've learned along the way. And then I realized like, how can I tap into my gifts? Because that's like what the Pearl sequence is really all about, and how to tap into prosperity and wealth and health and like change my mindset around certain things. So it's been the past, I think 3 or 4 months has been a lot of that, and learning more about myself through that. And I'm very curious. Like I still haven't finished the Pearl, but I need to, and I'm going to soon. I want to take a look at the Venus, because even though I've like experienced a lot of things and I feel like I've done a lot of the work, personal work, light work for myself, shadow work for myself, going through my, what Brian calls was the dark night of the soul, certain things about my life and how I love. I'm really curious to see more about those spheres and how they interact, and then how I can learn through that. So like, yeah, it's a little long of an answer, but yeah, I mean, it's been very cool ever since. It's only been 7 months since I started, less than a year. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Katie, do.
Okay, Katie, go. Just kidding.
Yeah, good.
If you have time, I'd love to hear Katie do sometime too. If not today, but either way. But
yeah, I mean, I was always into astrology, numerology, all these systems. About 3 years ago now is when I found the Gene Keys, and it just like they literally found me. And it was kind of like I was into human design, and I was like on YouTube looking up something, and I remember, so I like had looked up human design videos, and I just happened to see like a video that said Gene Key, and I looked at that. I was like, what's a Gene Key? And I like Googled it, and then I found the system, and I made my chart like right then and there, and basically it was just I was hooked. I'm just super curious, kind of like how you guys are. It's just like this curiosity came over me because when I started looking at the archetypes of my keys, even before I even knew what any of it meant, I just started looking at the archetypes and I was like, whoa, like I was resonating with them. And I was like, just like, yeah, the rest is history. Kind of just started, I found like the PDFs, started kind of just looking into it and just going into contemplation, just thinking about the keys, mostly looking at the archetypes at first. And then got the Gene Keys book, started looking at more of the keys, like reading them more in detail. Then I would look up YouTube videos of Richard Rudd. And then I just kind of, yeah, I kept going. And it's been a long journey. Like I still have kind of like what Michelle was saying, like those moments, the aha moments where it just like hits me and I'm like, holy fuck, that's my 31. Like this is it. Like I'm doing it. And also like, oh shit, I'm in the shadow. Like I feel the shadows and I can actually put like a name to it, like a word to it of like, oh, right now I'm really feeling like super insecure. Like that was coming up the last few days. And I was like, that's the 45. And having that cheat sheet that I kind of sent you put in the group where it has all of the keys and like the shadow gift cities, the dilemma, even just having that has been so helpful because it's like basically whatever I'm feeling, I'm like, what am I feeling right now? Then I go and look at the Gene Keys and it's like I find the word and I'm like, oh, okay, like let me kind of sit with this right now. And yeah, so that's how I've just been playing with them.
Just flowing.
Just flowing, yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yeah. That's amazing.
I think we all have the goes back to the Gene Key 10 that we have the naturalness. That's how we got you, and just it's a natural thing.
Yeah.
We gravitate to that, those discoveries, unintentionally, but deep inside is intentional because it's there. It gives a chance to explore. It's just about like that timing. It's almost like I'm experiencing a lot of, when people say, you're at the right time, at the right place, at the right time, like kind of thing. It's funny because I kid you not, it's almost like that movie. I think it was the Jim Carrey, I think it was Even Almighty or Bruce Almighty, that he had the superpowers. I swear every time we drive somewhere and it's busy, either there's a parking spot right there, I swear, available, or we're behind someone that's just living. It's within a second, constantly, because we're like, oh, we're gonna go there. Oh, but the parking's gonna be tough. I'm like, you know what? Because my girlfriend's name is Michelle too. I'm like, the universe got us, and it never fails. Every single time we have a place. Does that happen to you or what? Talman?
Yeah.
Maybe not parking spots specifically, but
other things, right?
Definitely like other things. Like for sure, there's so many synchronicities in life. Like when you start to just pay attention to those things, and I think that's like kind of the magic of it, and the whole, like going back to the Zig Ziglar thing, like your intention, your energy around whatever you're putting into it determines like the output of it. So like however you view it is going to determine, like, if you're putting love into every situation, everything is going to look a different way. Everything's going to feel a different way. So there's those synchronicities that start to line up, and then you can just be like, yep.
Yeah.
And there's another one like, you're like, okay, cool.
It's almost like you think of something and then it's happening like so quickly now. Before it used to be like, oh, but now you're like, wait, I just thought of this happening. It's happening. Like
Deja vu.
you really, yeah.
So
What's
the
deja vu, by the way? Like how do you describe a deja vu?
glitch in the matrix where you literally see the same thing, or you're feeling the same, like something is repeating. You're like, oh, I've been here before, but the
Yeah.
emotions, this feeling is like what I'm seeing is like the exact same,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mhm.
like a crossing of a timeline or something.
Yeah.
Um, I was gonna say something else, but I forgot.
Probably that podcast is Deja Blue. Is that what you're gonna say?
No, no.
I'm going to listen to that. Yeah. It's almost feeling like the shadow is one of the most, not the most powerful, but it's like through your shadow you can get through your, you know,
Yeah.
like learning the shadow is very important. What I'm reading here too is that your own suffering is your own salvation, right? Like through your shadow, that's the only way that you can get through your gifts and your, not the only way, but for now, because we're in so much suffering, that is the path to get to your gift. I mean,
I mean,
so,
Carl Jung says it's like you have to make the unconscious conscious. If until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you'll call it fate.
mm,
It's like we have to look at our shadows. We have to look at all those kind of hidden aspects of ourself that we've like swept under the rug or that is painful in order to reveal the light.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
Very
remember
cool.
what I was gonna say. You were talking about how, like the parking spaces thing, the same. Like I mentioned the Pearl sequence that I was going through, and how like I changed my mindset around abundance and prosperity and things, and it was like the second I did that, it was like I started to get paid. It was like money and clients and people and all that started coming in, and I never, like I even didn't. It's important to keep count your money, know how much you have, but like when I was in it, I didn't even really like care. I was just like, I'm gonna put this away, think about putting this away, like not just keep going forward with how I'm gonna gift my gifts in order to maintain that prosperity. So like continue to put out as much love as I was receiving. Um, love in the form of money.
Yeah, really cool. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really cool.
And sharing your knowledge, sharing your excitement, sharing your
Energy.
uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, yeah. And you're like, I love when that happens. Not, I can't believe this is happening. Well,
Yeah.
you're negating. You have to say it the other way.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
love get a parking space right in front of the theater. I love that when that happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
Keep it going.
Yeah, they say change your attitude is actually that's when you release and and unlock your gift. And it's just a simple thing as attitude, like we change your attitude, you change everything. It's insane.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're saying too, Michelle, is you're bolstering it by paying attention to the shadows, and the shadows give you energy because you flip it like a weapon. You flip it like Coleman said. You flip it a little bit. Like, okay, well, I'm still me. I still love me. So, and this is part of my power. This is a great source of power. Have to contemplate it, look at it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean the page 33, the relevant terminology for contemplation. And I want to start reading everything. It's like, oh, you start to understand everything that we have within, and it started to make sense. But then when I really started reading the shadow, I mean, just for some reason, I'm like, the shadow is basically it's what one's experienced the most, especially in 2020. I mean, this era that we're living. So the shadow really kind of stuck with me more than anything because everyone's suffering. I mean, they can walk, they have pain, they have diseases, they can breathe, their sleep sucks, they're eating shitty, they feel awful, they wake up with zero energy. and you need stimulants and external stuff to feel something, because what we are supposed to feel is just so blocked and hidden that the shadow work that everybody talks about now, it makes them like, yeah, nobody wants to do the hard work and face your fears, but you cannot break through if you don't face your fears, you know, like,
Hmm.
yeah, everything's super cool. I mean, it's, he explains this in a beautiful way, and like talks about that the internal patterns and traits that keep you believing you're a victim. Yeah, we all always blame everything and everyone around us but ourselves. And then when you realize that's your fault, there's the blame. So you're still on that darkness. So yeah, it makes total sense. Everybody's living their shadows, like the whole world's a freaking shadow and darkness. But I mean, but we need that to you know, reach the tipping point. And yeah, pretty cool.
Mm.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right, well, I think I'm gonna end it, and I'll end it just by repeating the Zig Ziglar quote, because you provided it, so I figured it's perfect. I was gonna say, like, I was gonna, put a quote towards the end of each one, so I'm glad you brought it up. And this one definitely applies to a lot of what we talked about today. So just rereading it, and let me know if I mess this up, because I was just typing it as you were saying it. My input determines my outlook determines my output determines my future. Is that right?
Correct. Exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
And one of the things I used to laugh at is say every morning when the alarm goes off, because you set when you want to get up, not in the morning, it's the night before when you set the alarm. But he said every morning he gets up and he goes, yippee, when he gets out of bed.
Wow.
I started doing it back then, and it did make a difference. I was like, this is wacky, but I feel different because I got out of bed, super like okay, I'm gonna do it, and then I go, yippee, and I felt different the rest of the day. It was crazy.
I'll have to try that. Yeah.
Hey, is that change
Well,
of the ad?
I got the book to look forward to. Gets me up, and I'm like just into that mode right away. So
Nice.
yeah,
So
thank you.
I think you guys are gone next weekend, or one of you guys gone next week.
Yeah, I'm gonna be out of town, but
Okay.
yeah, I don't know why you guys
We'll
are.
we'll probably do 2 weeks from now. I'll let you guys know if anything changes, but we might add in a little bit of extra reading, or maybe just have everyone go over their archetypes or something like that. So we can discuss more into that next time. But yeah, keep going, keep sharing, keep exploring with that playful mindset. Good
Sounds
stuff.
good. Sounds good.
Thank you guys.
So
That's good.
so 2 Tuesdays from now.
Yeah, 2 Tuesdays from now. So it'll be, let me just double check the date. It'll be the 19th.
Okay,
Right
excellent.
on the equinox.
Oh, there you go.
Around
Okay.
it.
Damn, let's
Equinox
go.
is on the 21st.
Solid.
21st.
Okay, that's good stuff.
Nice.
Sounds
Awesome.
good,
Thanks,
guys.
guys.
Yeah, thanks again
Thank you,
for coming.
Michelle.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you. Bye, guys. Have a great day.
You too.
Woo!
Yeah.
Thanks, Wendy. Thanks, Cal.
Bye, guys.
Let's do it. Okay.